In a world where humanity has destroyed the planet's atmosphere and caused global warming, scientists attempt to remedy the situation by creating an artificial cooling substance. While successful in reducing the heat, it inadvertently triggers a new ice age. Fortunately, a brilliant scientist named Wilford constructs a train powered by a perpetual engine that continuously circles the globe, providing a haven for the remaining human population. Those who venture outside the train face immediate death from freezing temperatures. However, the small society within the train is plagued by classism, with the upper classes residing in the front cars, economy classes in the middle, and the poor relegated to the tail section. 17 years later, guards distribute unappetizing protein blocks as food for the impoverished residents of the tail section. Curtis, a resident, initially refuses to sit for the distribution until threatened with being shot. He later confides in his friend Edgar about his plan to sneak through the train, having counted the doors in preparation. The guards then request an experienced violinist from the group, and an elderly couple, former members of the Boston Symphony Orchestra, volunteers. However, when the guard attempts to take only Gerald, he insists on not leaving without his wife. As a result, the guard brutally beats the woman and breaks her hand before forcibly removing Gerald. Curtis visits Tanya and her son Timmy to ask the boy to trade protein blocks. Upon cutting his new block, Curtis discovers a small capsule containing a message with the name Nam, a security expert from the prison section. Seeking Nam's assistance for the planned revolution, Curtis consults with Gilliam, an elderly one-armed man sitting next to a Wilford logo on the wall. Gilliam helps Curtis map out their options. Later, while everyone sleeps, a group of guards arrives with Wilford's assistant, Claude, who begins measuring the children with a tape. When Claude approaches Tanya and lifts her skirt, revealing Timmy hiding beneath, the boy attempts to flee as his mother screams in terror. Despite Tanya's efforts to protect her son, the guards capture Timmy and beat her into submission. After further measurements, Claude selects Timmy and Andy, Andrew's son, to be taken away. In a desperate attempt to stop them, Andrew yells and throws a shoe at Claude. As punishment, young Franco and old Franco place a clock around Andrew's neck and force his arm through a hole in the wall, exposing it to the sub-zero temperatures outside, causing him to scream in agony. Minister Mason then arrives to reprimand the passengers for their disobedience. She places the thrown shoe on Andrew's head, emphasizing the importance of maintaining order on the train. Mason attempts to call Wilford to have him address the situation, but he does not respond. The Francos remove Andrew's now completely frozen arm from the wall and shatter it with a giant hammer as the final act of punishment. In the days that follow, the impoverished passengers work diligently to create a tool to aid in their planned revolution. Curtis also acquires chronol, small blocks of highly flammable industrial waste used by addicts for a quick high. Curtis fixates on Mason's comment about the guards' weapons being useless guns, speculating that they may have run out of ammunition during the previous revolt. As everyone works, the group's artist creates drawings depicting the significant moments and presents Andrew and Tanya with portraits of their children. Suddenly, an alarm sounds, and everyone rushes to line up for the guards. With their device ready, the passengers create a distraction by loudly protesting the protein blocks. When a guard grabs an elderly man and threatens to shoot him, Curtis intervenes, placing the gun against his own head. The guard pulls the trigger, but nothing happens, confirming Edgar's suspicion that the guns are not loaded. Chaos ensues as the rebels overpower the guards. The device is revealed to be a giant train of pipes on wheels, which the group begins pushing through the compartments, with Curtis riding atop it. A fierce battle breaks out between the guards and the rebels, who easily overpower the unarmed guards. As a huge guard attempts to block their path, Gray jumps on him, swiftly kills him, and steals his keys. After reaching the prison car, where cells are embedded in the walls, the rebels use the stolen keys to free Nam, the security expert, who appears disoriented due to his addiction. Curtis, using a translating device from the wall, explains that he needs Nam's help to get through the doors in the upcoming cars, offering to pay him with chronol. As Nam contemplates the offer, he smokes a cigarette, shocking everyone since cigarettes have been unavailable for over a decade. The little Chan seizes the opportunity to steal Nam's matches. After much deliberation, Nam throws the cigarette, causing a frenzy as everyone fights over it. Nam joins the fight until Curtis pulls him out. Revealing that he took the keys, Nam opens another compartment containing his daughter Yona, who is also an addict. Nam agrees to help on the condition that both he and Yona receive chronol for each door they open. Curtis accepts the deal, and Nam begins working on the door's wiring. Yona announces that no one is on the other side, and Nam opens the door, confirming it is empty. Someone opens the windows, and everyone is amazed to see sunlight again after nearly 2 decades. The world outside is covered in snow, with every city completely frozen. Nam starts working on the next door, and Yona warns that he's running just before it opens. The group is surprised to find Paul, a former member of their group, now behaving erratically. They realize that these are the machines that produce the protein blocks and that Paul was brought here to make them alone, which has driven him insane. Curtis looks inside a machine and is horrified to discover that the main ingredient in the protein blocks is cockroaches. He finds another capsule on the floor and asks Paul about it, but Paul doesn't know who sends them. He simply puts them in the food. Gilliam opens it and finds the word water, prompting Paul to inform them that the water supply is located a few cars ahead. Realizing that controlling the water supply would give them leverage in negotiations, the rebels continue their advance. While Nam works on opening the next door, Curtis talks with Yona and discovers that she was born on the train. Curtis, on the other hand, came from the outside but has no memories of life before the train. When Curtis wonders if Yona is clairvoyant, she looks at the door and screams not to open it. Unfortunately, it's too late, and the door reveals a room full of masked men armed with axes. As a threatening gesture, they hold up a fish and gut it. Undeterred, the rebels charge forward, initiating a brutal and bloody battle. Both sides suffer casualties as they kill each other without mercy, splattering blood throughout the car. Edgar and Curtis try to push through the crowd, killing numerous masked men, but Curtis slips on the fish. As a man attempts to kill Curtis while he's down, Edgar intervenes just in time, killing the attacker. At the front of the car, more masked men and a few guards announce that they are about to cross a bridge. The men begin a countdown, and when the train reaches the bridge, they shout "Happy New Year." Since the previous year, several banks of ice have formed on the bridge, causing the train to shake violently as it passes through them. Everyone is thrown to the ground except for Yona and Nam, who look out the window to check on the cliffs below. Eventually, a guard announces that they have crossed the bridge, and everyone stands up to resume fighting. However, they are interrupted by the arrival of Mason and the Francos. Mason chastises the rebels for their ingratitude towards the shelter and food that Wilford has provided them over the years, and informs them that 74% of them will be killed. Enraged, Curtis throws an axe at her face, but it is blocked. Suddenly, Mason holds up binoculars, and her men put on special masks. Yona explains to Curtis that a long tunnel is approaching. As the train enters the tunnel, the car goes dark, but the guards maintain their advantage thanks to their special masks. The rebels are quickly overwhelmed, and they begin to die one by one while Mason watches the massacre with amusement, as if it were a play. However, Curtis remembers something and shouts for Chan to start a fire. Using the matches he stole, Chan lights a torch, and soon he and Andrew are leading a group of rebels armed with numerous torches into the dark car. With the help of the fire, the rebels regain the upper hand. Gray grabs an officer and threatens to kill him if the enemy doesn't surrender. Mason, unconcerned about the life of a low-level employee, remains unfazed, prompting Gray to kill the officer and continue fighting. He throws a knife, stabbing Mason in the leg. Seizing the opportunity, Curtis runs towards Mason, only to realize that young Franco has captured Edgar. Torn between saving his friend and the greater good, Curtis ultimately chooses the needs of the many and rushes to capture Mason while Franco kills Edgar. As soon as Curtis apprehends Mason, she orders everyone to stop fighting. Young Franco attempts to kill Curtis, but Yona emerges from hiding and impales him with a metal rod. After capturing old Franco, the group moves to the next car, which has running water to wash the blood off. Tanya and Andrew torture Mason to make her talk, but she only reveals that the children are taken to Wilford. Curtis then threatens to turn off the water supply, but Mason laughs, explaining that the water comes from the front of the train, generated by the snow and ice the train breaks as it moves. Ready to kill her, Curtis is persuaded by Mason to take her with them, as she can guarantee safe passage. That night, the group decides to rest, but Curtis and Gilliam stay awake to discuss their next move. Concerned about the number of lives already lost, Gilliam suggests that Curtis continue alone while he watches over the group and the prisoners. After examining the scar on Curtis' arm, Gilliam agrees to the plan. The following morning, Curtis sets out with Andrew, Tanya, Nam, Gray, and Yona, keeping a handcuffed Mason at the front. They first enter a greenhouse car, where fruits and vegetables are grown for the upper class. Nam gives Yona some dirt to touch, as she has never experienced it before, and she is surprised by the presence of worms. The next car is a giant aquarium, and Mason offers the group sushi. In this train, Fish are only consumed twice a year to maintain the balance of the ecological system. Mason attempts to eat some sushi herself, but Curtis stops her and forces her to eat a protein block instead, relishing her reaction because she knows what it contains. After passing through the butcher car, they encounter a classroom filled with screaming children. Tanya and Andrew immediately inquire about their children using the drawings, but a boy only knows that they were taken further into the train. The teacher plays a propaganda video that portrays Wilford as their merciful savior, and the children enthusiastically cheer for their leader. The teacher then plays an instrument and sings a song teaching the children that they will freeze and die if the train ever stops. At that moment, they pass a spot in the landscape where, 15 years ago, 7 people attempted to escape, and their bodies now stand as frozen statues in the snow. A man enters with a cart filled with New Year's warm eggs, and both the children and the rebels grab eggs to eat. Gerald also appears to play the violin for them. Tanya notices how much Gerald has changed since taking this job. Curtis finds a capsule in his egg with a message that reads, "Blood." As the cartman reaches another car, both he and the teacher pull guns out of the piles of eggs and start shooting. Everyone takes cover, but tragically, the teacher kills Andrew before Gray eliminates her with a knife. Mason tries to shoot Curtis, but he kicks the gun out of her hand just as a live video appears on the classroom's TV. The cartman has killed all the rebels, and now old Franco can shoot Gilliam. Consumed by grief, Curtis takes his revenge by killing Mason. The group continues their journey, passing through several cars that showcase the luxurious services enjoyed by the upper class, such as doctors, tailors, and a beauty salon. As they cross the dining room, Franco also begins to move and notices that the train is turning in a way that positions his car adjacent to the one with the rebels. He immediately opens fire and Curtis shoots back, both missing all their shots until they run out of bullets. While they reload, Nam notices a snowflake entering through the bullet holes, which he considers a clue. Franco and Curtis shoot once more, but realizing the futility of their exchange, they decide to move on. The group passes through a spa before reaching a sauna, where they hide in the stalls as Franco and 2 guards catch up to them. Franco opens a stall and kills a high-class passenger, then kills the guard who calls him out for it. At that moment, Gray jumps out, kills the other guard, and stabs Franco in the shoulder, initiating a fight. As the 2 men struggle, Curtis emerges to shoot Franco but cannot aim without risking hurting Gray. When Franco knocks Gray out, Curtis finally shoots, but Franco retaliates, wounding Curtis' arm. Tanya attempts to attack Franco but is shot down. Curtis engages Franco in hand-to-hand combat, and after a prolonged struggle, Franco knocks Curtis out. As Franco tries to stab Curtis, Gray intervenes. However, Franco quickly overpowers Gray and stabs him in the chest, killing him. When Franco opens another stall, he finds Nam hiding behind a woman, triggering another fight. As Nam pushes Franco down and begins strangling him, Yona emerges and grabs the knife to kill Franco. Nam stops Yona from killing Franco, causing her to drop the knife. As Curtis regains consciousness, he grabs the knife and stabs Franco in the side. Curtis then rushes to check on Tanya, who asks to see Timmy's drawing one last time before succumbing to her wounds. The group continues their journey, passing through a car hosting a loud, decadent party filled with alcohol, followed by a car with pits of addicts. Nam and Yona take advantage of the situation to steal some furs and alcohol. They then pass through a computer car and, after crossing a bridge, finally reach Wilford's vault door. As Yona passes out from excessive drinking, Curtis tells Nam to open the door. Nam demands more Kronol, causing Curtis to lose his composure and start beating on the door. Nam fights him to calm him down and then offers him the last cigarette on Earth, which Curtis enjoys while sharing his story. He reveals that during the early days on the train, the poor people resorted to cannibalism, and babies were considered the most desirable. Curtis killed a mother and almost killed baby Edgar as well, but Gilliam intervened and offered his arm instead. Others began to follow Gilliam's example, but Curtis has a scar on his arm because he tried and couldn't bring himself to do it. A few days later, the guards started providing protein blocks. In return, Nam confesses that he has been hoarding Kronol due to its flammability and has created a bomb to blow open the door to the outside. For the past decade, on every New Year's Day, Nam looked outside and noticed signs of the ice thawing, leading him to believe they could escape and survive. Suddenly, the door opens and Claude emerges, shooting Nam and taking his Kronol bomb before informing Curtis that Wilford has invited him to dinner. Curtis enters and finally meets Wilford, who explains that Curtis is the first person to have traversed the entire length of the train, as Wilford himself has never been to the back. Wilford then discusses the importance of ecological balance but admits that natural selection would have taken too long. So years ago, he devised a plan. It is revealed that he and Gilliam have been collaborating all along, orchestrating fake revolutions to control the population. As Curtis realizes that he was supposed to have been eliminated a few cars back but survived by chance, Wilford decides to restore the balance by calling the egg guy and ordering him to kill all the remaining poor people in the tail section, sparing only 18 to celebrate their 18th year. The sound of screams and gunshots echoes through the phone, and Curtis discovers that the logo Gilliam sat next to was his own private phone. Meanwhile, Franco regains consciousness in the sauna and simply pulls out the knife. Outside Wilford's car, Yona and Nam also wake up, only to notice one of the partygoers coming to attack them. Nam quickly intervenes and pushes the attacker into the train's mechanism, killing him. However, more furious partygoers are approaching. To hold them back, Nam blocks the bridge and tells Yona to open the door. Inside, Wilford brings Curtis into the engine room, offering him a moment of solitude, something Curtis hasn't experienced since boarding the train. Overwhelmed, Curtis falls to his knees and cries as Wilford presents him with the last capsule containing a message that reads "Train." Wilford wants Curtis to succeed him as leader, claiming it was Gilliam's wish as well. Outside, Franco starts making his way through the crowd of partygoers while Yona finally opens the door. Claude comes out to investigate, but Yona kills her and takes her gun, firing at Franco until she runs out of bullets. Franco survives, so Nam instructs Yona to retrieve the chronol from Claude and the matches from Curtis. Yona runs inside and extends her hand, but Curtis, now under Wilford's influence, pushes her away. Desperate, she grabs a fork and lifts a floor tile, revealing Timmy working to power the engine. Wilford explains that over the years they have run out of parts, so they now use children as replacements. Enraged by the revelation, Curtis attacks Wilford and beats him. Despite the excruciating pain, he reaches into the tile to stop the engine cogs and hands the matches to Yona. As Yona rushes out, Andy emerges from a compartment and rushes to the engine to reactivate it. In a matter of seconds, several events unfold simultaneously. Nam kills Franco, Yona ignites the chronol, and Curtis, enduring the agony of breaking his arm, stops the engine once more, allowing Timmy to climb out. The group then runs to embrace each other as the chronol explodes, blowing open the door but also triggering a massive avalanche that cascades onto the train. The cars begin to fall one by one, and the train derails until the front section becomes lodged in the snow, finally coming to a halt. Moments later, Timmy and Yona regain consciousness in the car, surrounded by flames and the bodies of the other passengers. Dressed in the stolen furs, they venture outside and witness a polar bear, realizing that they will not succumb to the freezing temperatures. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.